welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody had a nice and refreshing 25-minute break. This is going to be the last of our leadership summit for the day, and we're so excited to have Daryl McGraw kind of close us out. I know I was just chatting with the Safe Campuses team, and we are truly just so inspired and so excited about this cohort of people that we have together, and we truly couldn't think of a better person to kind of end out the day for us. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick introduction for Daryl, and then I'm going to pass over to Daryl for the next hour or so. So Daryl McGraw is the president and founder of Formerly Inc., Connecticut's first criminal justice consultant agency that is predominantly staffed by formerly incarcerated individuals. He also works at C4 Innovations as a recovery specialist and at Institution for Municipal Policy and Research at Central Connecticut State University as a reentry consultant. Prior to branching out on his own, Mr. McGraw served as a program director for the Yale University Department of Psychiatry, during which time he was contracted to serve as the director of the Office of Recovery Community Affairs for the State of Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. In 2007, Mr. McGraw experienced a life-changing event when he was arrested for probation violation and assault on a police officer and was sentenced to serve 4 years in prison. This was not Mr. McGraw's first time in prison, although it would be his last time as an inmate. During his time of incarceration, Mr. McGraw used every second behind bars to create what he calls today his 5-year plan for successful reentry. Today, Mr. McGraw holds a bachelor's degree in human services and a master's degree in organizational management and leadership. He's here to share with us his inspiring story of how he found freedom through the gift of education. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Daryl.
Thanks, Hannah. Thank you so much. Thank you. And welcome, everybody. And let's get ready. Let's get started. I'm excited to be here. State Projects Leadership Summit. It's a little different because we're doing this in this virtual world, so I only get to just see me, but if you out there, just let me know that you're in the building. I might ask for some crowd participation. That's what I get a little used to. So I know you're here. So if you're in the building, just, type in the chat box, say I'm in the building. I'm here. Let me know that you're there. Let me know we're out here. I'm just not here sitting here talking to my computer myself. So what's up? What's up, Kat? How you doing, Matt? Let's see. Let's share my screen while you guys are saying what's up. I'm gonna go here to this. Hey, what's up? All right, Ting, I see y'all out here. What's good? Let's go. Let's get it. So, I know that a lot of you have been sharing your stories. This is a bit about sharing stories, and this is one of the things that, what's cool about it is if after a certain amount of time, they start to pay you a little bit of money to share your story. So, that's not a bad thing. I see a lot of people in the building. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to take you, I know Hannah shared my bio, which every time I hear it, sometimes I'm kind of like, man, who's she talking about? I can't believe from where I come from to where I am today. But, I want to talk about, I'm going to do a little bit of my story, and then hopefully we'll have some time. I'm definitely going to try to leave some time so we could kick in, we could talk back and forth. But we're going to start off with, a lot of times when I do talks around the country, or a lot of times people ask me, what's your story? They want to hear your story. And one time I was invited to go to DC, and they asked me to come to DC to do a talk about trauma. And I was like, oh, no doubt, I could do trauma, man. I could talk about trauma. And so everybody was like, as we were planning, much respect, Wayne, I see you in the building. They were asking me, they said, so what was the trauma? What was it? Was it, sexual? Was it physical? And I was like, no. First trauma that I truly experienced, that my true experience, the trauma that I first experienced was when my dad left. My dad left the house, and at 6 years old, he had left. And to me, that was traumatic. This is my superhero. This is my guy, right? He's our protector. And at 6 years old, he was like, I'm out, But before he left, he said, he sat me down and he told me, he said, you're now the man of the house. You know, he told me I was the man of the house. And imagine being 6 years old and your father telling you that you're now the man of the house. And all these things started to run through my mind. You know, I'm thinking about, wow, you know, all the things dad did, he did all these responsible things. So at 6 years old, I started to take this real big weight on my shoulder. I felt like I had to be all these different things, anything but being 6, right? You know, my responsibilities changed. I had to grow up real fast. And so it was just me, my mom, and my brother. And my responsibilities were to, you know, bring my brother upstairs to the babysitter. And, you know, I had a little key around my neck, a little backpack, and I would run my brother upstairs to the babysitter and then go downstairs, get on the bus and go to school. Get off the bus, come back, run upstairs, get my brother, bring him to the apartment, and then and I had to lock the door and we had to be quiet. We had to be quiet because my mother would have got in trouble if somebody knew that she had left us alone. Now, keep in mind, my dad had already left. So I didn't want to be responsible for my mom, you know, my mother getting in trouble or going to jail. So, of course, that was our first family secret. So we grew up here. This is the Friendship Building, West Side, Stamford, Connecticut. Anybody from Connecticut, Stamford? This is where I'm from, West Side. I got to represent. I lived on the 5th floor. As you can see, there's 12 floors in the building. What's the difference, though? Interesting thing is there was 12 floors, 120 families in my apartment building. Okay, New Haven. 12 floors, 120 apartments in my building. Only 3 dads. Only 3 dads in the building. So, you know, when I first moved there, I was a little scared. I thought kids was going to pick on me because I didn't have a father anymore. And then when I got to that building, I realized nobody had a dad. There were only 3 fathers in that whole building. This is why this work that we do, and you guys are going to be emerging leaders. You're going out there. You got to be, the story has to be told. We always have to use that story as a tool so they know. A lot of times I got to, you know, depending on the audience, I got to make sure they know where I come from. So because they really respect the journey. They really respect the journey when you get there, when you get to that spot and you lead in whoever you lead, and they understand that you worked hard and it wasn't, nothing was given to me. Nothing was given to me, man. I had to come up and we're going to keep going in this story and I just really want you to understand that only 3 fathers, 3 male role models were in my project where I grew up. So I don't know, any class clowns in the building right now? If you're a class clown, type in the chat box, you're a class clown, you were a class clown, might still be a class clown. I think I'm funny, my kids don't, but you know, one of the first tastes of true power was, man, I was a class clown. And I say that, right, because I couldn't now, because y'all in recovery, I could talk a little bit plain. I could get a little plain about this, right? Understand this. My father left. And I couldn't stop him. I was powerless. I was powerless. I found out telling those jokes, Dylan, telling those jokes in the classroom, I was able to take the what power from the teacher. So I capitalized on that. That was big. The attention was on me. No matter what she was teaching, math, English, or whatever, I start cracking jokes. And now I can't stop because I need that power because I felt powerless when my father left. Y'all with me? If you with me, throw a thumbs up, something, man. Let me know I'm in here. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm talking to a screen. I want to make sure y'all with me, man. Let's go. So, okay. All right. Y'all helping me out because I really don't know if I'm in here or not. All right. Cool. So check this out. If you with me, stick with me now. Stay in the car. This is what success looked like to me, right? I admired the drug dealers. I admired the dude with the biggest chain. My dad left, so I didn't have that role model, so the street raised me. That was the first sign of leadership. The first sign of leadership that I saw was the drug dealer. This was the person that I admired. This was who I aspired to be like. The gold chain, he had the money, he had the girls, he had the Jeep, he had all that. You know, the Gucci suits. I'm dating myself right now. But they had, that was power, another source of power. We see what's important that we always need to know, especially those of us that are in recovery, power is a dangerous drug. I'm gonna say it again. Power is a dangerous drug. So we always got to always check ourselves, especially as leaders. And this is something that I'm giving this to y'all early. I wish they gave it to me early. I'm giving it to you early right now. So this is what success looked like to me. Now I was a class clown. Now I'm chasing power in the street. I want this power. I want this. I need this because I felt less than when my dad left. I felt worthless. So now, I see y'all in the building. My dad left. I'm powerless. I'm feeling some type of way. But then I found out if you throw a nice chain on, you driving a nice car, people start to notice you. They start to see that power starts to come. You start to see this. You start to gain this power. So we're gonna keep going. So then I became what? No dad, product of my environment. This was my playground. When I said I was going outside, this is where I was going. I was going to the street. If you can relate to that, let me know you can relate to that. So this is where I hung out. This was my office. This is where we hung out at in the street. And I became a product of the environment, right? I became a product of my environment, right? So I'm in the street. All my friends are in the street. This is where we hung out at. This is where everybody was at. This was one of my first classrooms. I always question this. What if I grew up in the suburbs? What if I grew up and these were my neighbors? My neighbor had an HVAC company. Somebody had Ted's Plumbing, Bob and Sons cleaning business. What would my life have been like if I grew up in a different environment? We always, think about, how does environment play in this, right? Because where I grew up, there was a lot of violence, and becoming part of that environment, I became a perpetrator of violence, right? So I always question, and I wanted to put this out here, here is the suburbs. Here's the, blue collar guy. They're still working. Of course, they got trauma and all that stuff, but it's not the same thing, right? They're not growing up the same way. They're not on the corner. They probably play in each other's backyard or hang out in basements and driveways and stuff. So I always wondered, I don't know, because I don't have that information. I didn't grow up like that. I told you I grew up in the hood. But I always curious of what this was going on. What would life be like if this was my reality? Maybe I would look like this guy. Maybe this would be the power that I saw, and living like this, and maybe that would be me. He looks a lot different, a lot happier than probably I looked when I was growing up. And I always think becoming that product. So I always just want you to think, especially as leaders that are going to be working in the recovery field, being really knowledgeable about your story, but how did your environment play into that? How did your environment, because if you could speak to that and you educate people, especially if you're working with people that come from that same environment, as a leader, you get to inspire them and say, yo, I came from the same place. But that doesn't mean how your story starts, does not mean how the story will end. So sometimes you just need to change your environment. Sometimes you just need to think about changing the environment. And thinking about that, changing your environment, changing your mind state, all these things come into play. And as leaders, we always have to think about, especially if you're running organizations, you're working in nonprofits, you're working in grassroots, sometimes you have to change the environment yourself. You have to be the change you want to see in the world. Come on, man. Y'all with me? Come on, man. Y'all with me? I don't see y'all, man. Y'all with me? Where we at? Let's go. Let's get it. I'm on my way. I see y'all. Okay. I was getting a little nervous, man. I thought I was on freeze or something. Okay. So here we go. So I made it. You guys see that? I made it. I always like to use this slide because it shows me with the goatee and hair, because my kids don't believe I could grow hair. So I always keep this picture around just to remind them that, yeah, I grew hair, I had waves and everything. I just choose not to have hair today, right? So here, it says I made it. And that's a really strong statement, because growing up in that single parent home with my mom, you know, I made some really poor choices like many of us, right? Like many of us have done. And I remember when I first got incarcerated, my mom came to the visit and I was sitting there and I probably looked just like this. I looked real comfortable in that spot. And she said to me, well, you made it. And I was like, what you mean? What you mean, Mom, I made it? She said, you worked really hard to get behind these jail bars. Everything that she tried to tell me not to do, I did the exact opposite. She said, so you made it. You happy? You know, this is your success. This is your success. And I didn't think about it. I was like, oh, Mom, you're crazy, whatever. But later on in life, it made me think, you know, I did work very hard. I put a lot of work in to get those tans and to sit in that jail seat and take that jail picture. I put a lot of work in there. And then I was introduced to crack cocaine. And we talked about power early in this, there'd be no way that I could tell my story without mentioning the addiction and how strong that addiction was for me. And here is where crack cocaine was the instant power. Now everything changed. You know, I went from class clown, where I was taking the power from the teacher, to being in the street with the jewelry and all of that. And that was very powerful. But now crack cocaine came and there was a different kind of power. And it was a power, when we talk about powerless, a lot of times in recovery, this drug introduced me to powerlessness. You know, this is where I had my first understanding of what true powerlessness really was. My dad leaving was a small thing to being addicted to crack cocaine. So due to that introduction, I spent 10 years of my life in and out of the Department of Corrections on what we call the installment plan. I hear you, Kat. This is what we're talking about. We got it in our story. We have to figure out one of the arts of, as leaders, but as telling your story. You don't got it. It's not an NA meeting, but you have to be able to take this story, take bits and pieces of it, and make sure that we use it as a tool because it's ours, and use it as a tool to educate, inspire, activism, advocates, all this story, man. This research that we have done, this thing is so personal that I get to, man, what a gift for me to be here with you guys and share with you as you shared with each other today, man. Understand how powerful, but how personal that story is, man. What a gift. What a gift. We thought we was going through something, but little did you know you were getting some gifts that's going to take you through life and the life lessons that you learned through that journey. But also it's a gift when you're able to tell somebody else this story and then they come back to you and say, I heard something that you shared. When you shared that the other day, you shared that 5 years ago, that changed my life. I haven't picked up a drug since. So we got to keep it 100. And this is what we do today, man. We use this story as part of our leadership. A lot of people don't have this talent, but you guys are in the right place. You guys are in the right place. I'm telling you, with the Safe Projects leadership thing, you're going to learn this thing. This is not our first time seeing. This is our first time seeing each other, but I guarantee it's not our last. So 10 years in and out on the installment plan, checking in to see if the food still grows. You know, I'm bouncing in and out, seeing what's going on, you know, seeing my friends. Everybody was there. So, you know, but this is also a traumatic experience for me as well, because all the things that come with prison comes trauma. And then you're traumatized before you go in from the things that you grew up with. Nobody ever addressed the trauma of my dad leaving. Then all the things that I saw on the street, nobody addressed those issues. And then I went to prison and nobody ever addressed those issues. So as leaders coming up, I'm hoping that wherever you go, that you make sure that we start addressing trauma in every aspect of our business, because this is what keeps people sick and this is what keeps people coming. And I believe, I'm gonna say this, you know, because I work for myself, so I can say what I want. I wanna say that, let me tell you, is that a lot of times businesses and systems know that trauma is what's keeping us sick, and this is why they don't address it, because they like to return business. But for us, it's deeper than that. It's about setting people free. See, my job, every time I put my feet on the floor, my job is to set people free, whether it be physically or mentally free, That's what I do each and every day. So I'm blessed to have this opportunity to be here with you guys, because it's the ripple effect. When you throw a rock in the water, it ripples out. So every time I share my story with somebody else, it ripples out. Then you guys take it and you run with it, and you're going to set somebody free. Man, this is the 2020 Underground Railroad. We setting people free daily. Come on, man. Let's go. Y'all with me? Y'all playing games. Y'all thought we was playing games? We didn't come to play no games. We didn't come to play no games. Y'all thought we came to play games? No. They said this was a keynote. This is the keynote. Understand that. Let's go. So here we are, May 7, 2007. May 7, 2007. Worst day of my life. This is the last time I was in the back of the police. This was the last time I was in the back of a police car. The last time I put a substance in my body. They had me on a $250,000 bond. I was arrested for DWB. For those that don't know, driving while black. And one thing led to another. Of course, I didn't have a ton of finances. I ended up serving 4 years. As my bio says, I actually served 3.5 years on a 4-year sentence. Worst day of my life. But that was the last time. That was the last time they was going to see me. And I always told brothers that in the prison, when I go into prison now, I work with lifers groups. I work with brothers in the prison. And I tell them, you know, and I remember telling the guy in my cell, I said, yo, man, this is my last time coming back here, man. He said, oh, man, everybody says that. I said, no, trust me, this is my last time coming back here. The next time I come through these doors, I'll be coming through the front door. And he's like, oh, man, right? So I've been back a million times. I've been going in and out of the prison. I've been going in and out of the prison for the last 4 years, up until COVID, you know, and I seen that guy. He was one of the first guys I seen when I started going back into the prison, and he just started laughing. And I said, tell him what I told you. Tell him what I told you. He said, yo, the next time he come through, he's coming through the front door. And that's the only way I'm going through these prisons, is through the front door, delivering this message, man. And I inspire each and every one of you to deliver your message in every court. I don't care where you're doing, basketball court, a recovery center, prison, wherever. This message needs to be told. We need to be setting people free, man. This is our work. As leaders, this is what we do. Let's go. Y'all getting me fired up, man. It's getting hot in here, man. Dylan, you didn't tell me it was going to be this hot, man. I wasn't expecting all this heat right here. Mary, give me some of those chills. I'm hot. Let's get it, Cat. Let's go. So, yeah, I told y'all, man, right? I told y'all clear. Let's be clear. Let's be clear about this. That was the last time I was in the back of a police car. The last time. But let me tell you, I didn't do it alone. I didn't do it easy. I wish to tell you that I had a plan. I didn't have a plan. I was a man with no plan. So one day I'm in my cell, West Wing, Hartford Correctional. I'm on a $250,000 bond, right? I ain't got no money. I'm broke, and my bond is $250,000, right? And I'm in West Wing, 25 cell. Some guy comes by, I don't know his name. I can't think of what he looks like. He said, bro, I got a book for you to read. I said, man, if I was reading books, I wouldn't be in prison right now. He said, nah, I want you to read this book. And the book was The Purpose-Driven Life, right? He slipped that book under my door. This was a 40-day spiritual journey. I don't know if anybody has read it. If you read it, if you're familiar with it, just pop it in the chat, say read it, know about it, heard about it, let me know. It's a 40-day spiritual journey, right? Written by Rick Warren. So 40-day spiritual journey, that means each chapter is read in 40 days. Now, get this. I hope y'all sitting down, right? My court date was 41 days away when this dude gave me the book. So I was like, oh, man, God, you want me to read this book so I could get out? Because I think God is a bondsman, and that's the way it works. This has got to be spiritual. This has got to be something. God is going to give me a book that I don't know, and it's 40 days. My court date is 41 days. This has got to be why I'm here, to read this book. So, of course, diligently, man, I'm reading this book. Every day I'm writing a few lines. I'm writing, because I'm just trying to be diligent. I'm just trying to show God, that I'm worthy of this bond, Wayne. You know, I'm trying to bond out, Wayne. Wayne, I'm trying to bond out, right? So of course I'm gonna be following this book, right? So I'm writing and you know how we do it, right? So by day 26, Wayne, I started writing pages. I couldn't stop. The pen was crazy. As a matter of fact, I wrote so much, I wrote 6 composition books, 6 of them, full, page to page, page for page. I didn't stop writing. I kept writing, right? So day 40 comes and I'm standing in the cell. I got these books and I'm writing, and I kid y'all not, man, this is between us. I found purpose in that cell, 25 cell, West Wing 25 cell. I found purpose. And make no mistake, each and every one of you that's listening to me today, this ain't by chance, this ain't by accident. You didn't just happen here. This was meant for you to hear. This was meant for you to hear because we all need purpose. And once we find purpose, life becomes so much easier. You ain't got to worry about the money. As long as you're walking in purpose, you'll be straight. I'm telling you, right? So this is that. So I found that purpose. I found that purpose in that cell, West Wing 25 cell. Man, I'm so grateful for the brother. I'm trying to find the dude who gave me the book, man. I owe this dude some bread or something. Can't find him. While I was in there writing those books, the books I just showed you, I created a 5-year plan. That 5-year plan was the keys. That was the beginning piece. That 5-year plan, I started to write this 5-year plan and creating a new map, right? It no longer included hustling, you know, it no longer included selling drugs. It no longer included breaking the law. It was, you know, one of the first things that I had to change in this 5-year plan, Brother Wayne, was character. See, because when you change your character, certain things no longer become acceptable. Selling drugs is no longer acceptable. Product of an environment, I had to be a product of a different environment now, right? I had to be something different. I had to show that there was a change possible, right? I had to show that this, and I said, well, how am I going to do this? I don't know, 5-year plan. So when I talk about the 5-year plan, I don't say, well, year 1, I'm going to do da, 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 da. I say by year 1, I want to be able to complete this. Year 2, I want to be able to complete this. When I'm in jail and I'm inspiring brothers, I tell them, listen, you got 15 years? Man, listen, in 15 years, your first 5 years, I want you to learn Spanish. In your next 5 years, I want you to learn French. In your last 5 years, I want you to learn Italian. And when you come out of prison in 15 years, you will speak 3 languages. You know how many people speak 3 languages? They just sit there stunned. See, because I believe everybody needs a 5-year plan. If you don't have a 5-year plan now, you should start writing. You should start writing that 5-year plan of where you want to see yourself 5 years from now, right? You in this leadership training, okay, it's 10 months. You already in the gate. So where you going to take this leadership now? You could be anything you want. We already proven that anybody could be president. Oops, did I say that? I'm sorry. Listen, anybody, you could do anything you want. So let's go. You could do anything you want. So right now, this is the gift. You're in the leadership training. You just taking, are you just taking it? Or are you taking it because you see yourself being a leader somewhere? And you know, I remember when I was in prison, a brother said to me, if it don't exist, create it. And this is what I'm doing. If it don't exist, create it. And that's what I'm inspiring you to do. If it don't exist in your hood, make it happen. You are a leader. This is why you're here, man. Listen, this is an exclusive club. Leadership is an exclusive club. All the books on my shelf, top shelf, all of them leadership books. That's all I read. That's what we do. So we're in an exclusive club, man. Let's go. Y'all think we playing some games, man. I think y'all think we playing, man. I might have to stop here because I'm not really sure if y'all leaders. Am I in the right group? Is this the leadership? If this is a leadership group, man, type leadership in the box because I want to make sure I didn't step into the workers group. Make sure I didn't step into the mail room or something. Is this the leadership group? Where y'all at? Oh, I thought okay. Okay, because I thought I walked into the mailroom. I thought I was in the library as quiet as y'all. Y'all should be happy right now. Let's go. Y'all playing games, man. I thought I was in the library for a minute, Dylan. I thought I stepped into the wrong group. So June 10th, 2010 is when I got released. So y'all that do that math, those that are mathematicians, how long have I been home? How long have I been home? I always ask the brothers in prison, some of them are real quick. Those are the dudes that mess with banks and checks and stuff. They already know, they can tell you quickly. Then some other dudes a little slow. It takes them the whole talk. By the time they're still figuring it out while I'm talking. So, right? So exactly 10 years, June 10th, 2010 was when I was released from prison. Remember that road map? I had that map. I had that map handy. I had that map right here handy. It was ready. All these books. I had plenty of time to think about what I wanted to do, where I saw myself going, where I was going to be, right? I see some of y'all still trying to figure out that math. Now, I'm not going to stick you out there, but it is 2020, about to be 2021. I got out June 10th, 2010. I'm not going to mess with you. I'm just saying, man, one of the good parts about being a leader, you can hire somebody to do your books. That's okay, though. We'll talk about that later. That's the next group. That's the next chat. But I created that roadmap. And that roadmap, and those, all of you, see, when I'm talking in prison, I say GPS. Some dudes, I got to be easy because some dudes been in jail like 20 years. They don't know what a GPS is. So I don't want to be offensive. But out here, most of y'all should know what the GPS is, right? And when you put the address in the Waze or whatever device you use when you're using it for a navigation system, that's the roadmap we're talking about. But we're talking about this one is for you in your life, right? So I'll put in an address and sometimes there's construction. So what happens, the GPS diverts me a different way, but always brings us what? Back right on track. And every once in a while, the GPS tells you a shorter way to go. So with this leadership thing and this journey that you guys are on, stay on track. Stay on track. Put the address, put the destination in the GPS. Where are you going with this thing? Don't worry if you got to stop at this position. You might get knocked down, but that's just a detour. But always have the destination. See, I never was distracted. I had to go a couple of routes. Sometimes it was a shortcut, sometimes it was a long way. Sometimes I got caught in traffic. But at the end of the day, it always put me back on track. Y'all with me? Y'all with me? Let's go. And I would be remiss, because this is what it's all about. We talked about power early, me being a class clown. We talked about me being in the street, seeking that power with that fat gold chain. We talked about all these different ways of power and trauma and all these things, but I found the real power was truthfully in education. I got my GED in prison. I started going to school. I started going to prison. I started going to college in prison. And then when I got out, the last time I got out, June 10, 2010, I started working and I told, I told this lady that I was working for, I said, man, this is, I like this job, but I really like some more money. She said, well, you're going to have to go to school. And I was like, think about it. My 5-year plan has school all in it. That 5-year plan, that was just part of the plan. That was part of the thing. So I was like, oh yeah, school. So I went to Springfield College in Springfield, Mass. And I started to, I went to Springfield College on the weekends, 4 years straight, right? No weekends off, no clubs, no nothing, just straight going to school. Now, mind you, I had already been in prison, so I already know wasn't no clubs in prison. So it was real easy for me not to go to the club when I got out. So I already had, as everybody know here, I already had a destination, right? And it wasn't the club. A lot of times, even today, man, prior to COVID, they used to say, yo, I don't be seeing you, man. I ain't see you at the club last night. I said, I didn't see you at the bank this morning. You know, I'm always clear about it, man. We got to tell people straight up, right? We got to be real with them. I wasn't at the club. I don't waste my time there. Ain't no money there unless I'm buying the club. Let's go. Let's get it. So here we go. Who am I today? That's my tribe right there. That's when I got my master's. This is my crew. So, criminal justice activist, advocate, formerly Inc. President, owner, and consultant. I do multiple consulting around the country. I have a bachelor's degree in human services, a master's in organizational management and leadership. I work at CCSU, Central Connecticut State University, as an adjunct. I do policy and research. I'm currently, as right now, the Connecticut Chair of Police Transparency and Accountability Task Force. So remember the police that was chasing me? Now they got to listen to me. They call me check it out, peep it online. They call me Mr. Chair now. So those same police officers that was chasing me, now they got to listen to me when I'm telling them how we're going to do things in our state. This is how leaders do it. And man, the biggest blessing that I have is having 3 amazing kids. My son, who is in the middle, is now 6'10", and he plays basketball basketball in a high school in New Jersey. We're from Connecticut, so he stays with a host family, and his GPS is set on being playing in the NBA. My oldest is standing next to me looking like a gangster. Her GPS is set on her own business, owning her own businesses. We're already getting her credit straight so she could buy a house by the time she's 30, if not 2. And the little one with the gang signs up, her destination is to be a doctor. Since she told me when she's 14, she's 16 now. When she told me that she wanted to be a doctor at 8, I call her Dr. Kimberly ever since. And when I introduce her, this is Dr. Kimberly, because you got to make sure that the destination is set and they're on their way. So with that being said, man, we're going to open it up. We're going to chop it up, man. We got some time to talk. I actually finished a little bit early. So Dylan and anybody has any, you guys want to open the floor up, man? Let's talk about it. Let's chop it up. Where are those leaders at?
So Daryl, thanks so much for sharing. This is awesome. And I think we've all enjoyed it more than we could ever express. But Dylan asked, what do you think your younger self would have said if you had showed him this previous slide that you just had pulled up?
Oh, the last slide with the family? Oh, that would have been like, yeah, right. Who's that? Who's that cornball and what's he wearing? Right? Because where I come from, there wasn't nobody went to college. Like college was prison, right? So nobody was going to college, and they definitely wasn't getting master's degrees. Man, Wayne said he started his master's in social work. Yep. Nice, man. Man, let's stay in touch. Keep in touch. Anything else?
All right. Here's a question from Kat. She says, you talked a lot about your trauma. What was fundamental in unlearning what you had been conditioned into you? What helped you shift your mindset fully and heal?
Oh, great question, Kat. Yeah, so that trauma thing, right? As I talked about my dad leaving and being that, had leaving at 6 years old, and I started to what I like to talk about peeling the onion back, and started to realize that I really had, number one, I didn't have any control over that, but also it wasn't me. I didn't leave, he left me. So, and it took me some time to realize that. But once cause for a long time, I processed that, I don't know why he left. I felt like it was a deficit, and it made me feel kind of like, less than, I'm not good enough. And I was always feeling alone. And then, that when I was 6 and I was watching my brother, felt those feelings of abandonment. And then once I started to peel that onion back and really start to look at what happened, I didn't have any control over it, nor could I even fix it. right? So that empowered me to like start to try to live my own life. And when I created that 5-year plan, that started giving me, and we talk about recovery capital a lot, and building up. So those little wins started to win, and they started to get bigger along the way.
Thanks, Daryl. So Jonathan is asking, when setting your GPS, what do you use as reminders of your destination?
Oh, a lot of people talk about don't think about where you came from, but I got to remember that. I had to remember my May 7, 2007. That $250,000 bond. I almost lost my life. I had got tased, choked. A lot of stuff had happened, so I had a lot happen that day. So I had to remember. I always kind of remember that day. That day is definitely a reminder. But just thinking about a lot of things that I think about where I came from. Ever since I decided to, when I wrote the 5-year plan, one of the things that, one of the common denominators was drugs. Drugs was a common denominator in my life, right? Every time I ended up in prison, either I was getting drugs, using drugs, or something like that. So the second that I decided when I was writing that plan to take drugs out of the equation, let's try this without drugs. I don't know if it's going to work, but if I'm not getting arrested without drugs, I'm going to keep pushing. I haven't been arrested since. Right. So taking the drugs off the table kind of let me know. And as long as I continue to move forward like that. So I kind of remember those things and little things, but writing things down really was helpful for me.
That's awesome. Tim wants to know how we can get our hands on one of those shirts that you're wearing.
Oh man, I got this shirt from Columbia University. They do Beyond the Bars conferences, and I was a speaker there, and I had to get one of these, but I don't know, we're gonna have to figure it out. We might have to reach out to them, but that's where I got it from. It's one of my favorite shirts.
There we go. We're gonna have to all become speakers at Columbia University, I guess.
Yeah.
Those shirts.
At the Beyond the Bars conference, let me know when you're going. Look, God, man, COVID's got us all messed up. When they have it, I want to go. I always go every year.
That's awesome. So I have a question about mentorship. What is it that keeps you continuing to learn and grow? Because you're involved in a lot of different things. I was joking with Dylan earlier, and I was saying I'm practicing saying Daryl's intro because it's a mouthful. So what is it that keeps you growing?
I don't know. We sent you a long one too. I'm sorry. No, it keeps me. I'm inspired, man. I'm inspired by it. Every time I get asked. I got a little team, a very small team, and they're always saying that, you need to say no, right? I need to learn to say no more. But I'm inspired by having the opportunity to be asked to do things. But, I had a spiritual mentor who passed away this year, not due to COVID, but he had passed away to a heart attack like early January. So before it was him and I. But people, I believe iron sharpens iron. So like if I'm chopping it up with Dylan, or if I'm chopping it up with somebody else that's in recovery, anybody, iron sharpens iron. So we keep each other inspired. So that's what keeps me going. And then, the injustices in the country and the stuff that we see daily should keep us wanting to do more, right? So that gives me the activist, the advocate piece. I get a little bit of everything. And, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to be able to do all of this really cool stuff.
Thanks, Daryl. All right. Dylan is wondering, as you've gotten more experienced and successful, does shame still ever come up for you?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I shouldn't say think so. Sometimes, I think it's like, I don't know if it's shame, but I think that sometimes, those of us that have been traumatized, we always still think, especially those like myself, who have thought that, we weren't good enough, right? So there's a lot of times that I think that I'm probably my own worst critic. So there's sometimes I'm challenging myself like, oh man. And if I make a mistake, I'm always like, man, I could have did that better. Or like, how did I get into this spot? Like, so, every day is not rosy, but I think that, the shame is like, it's like a balance. You lose and then you win. You lose and you win all the time in life. Just the losses that I'm taking now are nowhere near as significant as losing my freedom. As long as like a lot of stuff happens, I can't pay bills sometimes, my car breaks, all this crap happens, right? But I always think back to, I'm not negotiating for my freedom with some lawyer. I'm not in prison. I have an opportunity to do more and more. As long as I'm free, like me out here and mentally free, I can do anything I want. So I'm always inspired by that.
I love that. All
I
right.
think Mary had a good question.
All right. Let's see here. Are you transparent about your journey with your children?
I think they are so tired of hearing my story, right? Like they don't, I think that they're tired of hearing it, but they were part of the journey, you know. My oldest, Natalie, who was standing up, when I went to prison, the first time I went to prison, her mother was pregnant with her. And then, so I watched her grow up in the jail. I watched her grow up in prison. So by the time I got out, she was born while I was in prison, and she was running through the visiting room door. And then you know, and then I still continued to go in and I cycle in and out of prison. So I remember when she was like 14, and she said to me, like, you know, she was way beyond her years. She had said to me, you don't even know me. You know, I'm 14, but you've only been in my life 7 years. So we had to deal with that, and that was a lot. We had a big disconnect for a long time. And there was also some resentments on her end too, because her brother and sister, who are a lot younger than her, they don't ever remember me being gone, even though I was gone for a small period of time in their lives, but they were too young to remember. Whereas Natalie remembers her mom probably crying at night and all of these different things. So transparency, and we believe, like, you know, one of the things that I always say, fair is the F word in my house, right? So you can't say fair, and you know, and I've been teaching them that since they were little, because I don't want them to grow up believing that life is fair. You know what I mean? You can do all the right things and still something bad could happen to you. So we are very transparent in our house.
That was a great question, Mary. Thank you for asking that.
Yes, it was. That was cool.
Zachary is wondering, how do you deal with your criminal past, the stigma attached, and your digital profile revealing your criminal history, and on your journey to change the world and as a leader?
Yeah, well, because in the work that I do, like as an advocate and you know, and an activist, and always into the phase of, like, you know, you all right, Hannah? Right?
My husband thinks he's being stealthed behind me, but he's not.
Tell him he wasn't good. Tell him he got to try a little harder. Ninja classes on Thursday nights, right? So one of the things is that, you know, the criminal record still phases. The criminal record is still a barrier for me. You know, even though I've been through so much, I've worked for the state of Connecticut, you know, I was a director, I've done all these things, but if I apply for a different job, I still get questioned about the criminal record and sometimes still get denied. There's a couple of organizations when I transitioned out, I wanted to work there and they told me no. So I can't wait to do that. Like my TED talk, I'm going to thank them in my TED talk or something. Like whenever I get to a real national stage, I'm going to personally thank not only the HR director, but the organization that denied me the job, because if they had gave me the job, who knows, I probably wouldn't even be here today. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful because, you know what, those barriers only make us stronger. So you know what, I mean, and what we have to do is capitalize off the criminal record. And, you know, even when I'm telling people that are fresh out, like, yeah, you know what, I had some issues early, you know, I made some poor choices, but let me tell you who I am today. And I always encourage people to go with who you are today. Don't talk about the crime, because it's really hard to make a robbery look good. So don't even talk about what you did to go to prison, but talk about who you are today. And that's why that's really important. And that's why the last slide says, who am I today? Because that's what really matters.
That's great. So Illinois is asking, what kind of advice do you have for those looking to create educational pathways from incarceration into collegiate recovery?
Give me that again. Illinois, you gonna take it there, man? You know, I was relaxing, I was cool, I was cruising.
Leave it to Illinois. So Illinois is asking, what kind of advice do you have for those looking to create educational pathways from incarceration into collegiate recovery? So for those who were previously incarcerated, who are hoping to find the gift of education and collegiate recovery.
No doubt. So that right there that's a great question, and something that I do all the time, right? So I have this thing called a recidivism group, right? And that is, and anybody that's been in prison will understand this. When you go to prison, you go through an AP room. If you haven't, you see it on TV, that's where they strip you. They take everything. Basically, they take your clothes, right? But they also take your dignity too, right? And every jail that you go to, they strip you, they give you new clothes, ID, your rule book. So that's the AP room, and it's called admitting and processing. One of the things that we don't have in our communities is an AP room to re-citizen people, right? And this is my life's goal to spread around our country. We got 2.2 million people in prison. We need to have something when they get out, we got to clean them back up mentally, physically, bring them through an AP room process and reunite them back into their communities, into their families. Getting out, 10 years and you come home and your daughter's a teenager, there needs to be groups to talk about what's that like. And lived experience is key. This is why our work is so needed and valuable, because lived experience, a lot of times these big companies and organizations try to create these programs without people at the table with lived experience. And this is where they're going wrong. And this is why we need each and every one of you to be in a leadership role, so they know that the only way we can get through the door is if you open it. Right now, I got the door open for all of y'all to come through it. You got to keep opening doors, and that's how we're going to make this thing happen.
Amen, Daryl.
That chat box is going crazy.
I know, I'm trying to keep up. So we got about 9 more minutes. All right, so Kimberly said, I really resonated with all that you've shared about trauma. It's everywhere and can certainly be used as a tool to connect us all. How do you suggest us using trauma as leaders?
Oh yeah, so trauma as leaders, like one of the things I work with a lot of clinicians, and Hope Payson is like my homegirl. Me and her we work really close. And what we do a lot of talks on the ACEs, right? The ACEs is significant. If we have more time, I would have showed you a trauma video for the next time we chat. I will, since you guys got 10 months, make sure they invite me back, right? I'll come to your graduation. Make sure Hannah brings me back. So the thing is that we talk about ACEs, and ACEs opens all doors, right? So that's adverse childhood experiences, right? It also now is starting to swing to more adverse community experiences. So when we start to talk about the adverse childhood experiences, you're talking about me at 6 years old, but we're also talking about the things that led up to the trauma, right? Because most people who have an addiction issue have trauma. And a lot of times we don't talk enough about it. And if we address the trauma, a lot of times, like in my case, the addiction no longer becomes the issue, right? Let's address the trauma. So much trauma had happened in my life before I set foot in a jail cell, and it just continued on. So if we can start to address and identify the trauma and start working with people, whether you're in a school working with young people in their trauma, or you're working with adults and starting to address those traumas, that's a way that we got to look at it. But ACEs is going to be, the ACEs test is one of probably the best that I've seen, and I'm sure, but by no means am I a clinician, but I would recommend the ACEs because it's 10 questions and it hits a lot of different barriers. When I do a lot of racial equity work, and some people challenge if it's good enough for people of color, but I'm a person of color, and my ACEs score is a 5. So.
All right, moving right along here. We got a lot of more questions. So
I got some time. I got nowhere to go. So whatever y'all got, I can stay a couple minutes if y'all need me.
We could be here all night, I think. So Ray says, sometimes I feel like my 5-year plan doesn't have a destination because everything is so uncertain. How can I make a 5-year plan and allow the destination to be flexible?
Right, that destination, though, it's crazy. It is flexible, because let me tell you, Ray, you know what's funny about my 5-year plan? When I wrote my 5-year plan and I was incarcerated, all I wanted to be was a drug counselor. I was like, when we get clean, when we stop using substances, we become substance free. All of a sudden, we want to save the world. So I wanted to be a drug counselor. I could wear sneakers, I could wear like regular clothes, and tell people to stop smoking crack. That's what I wanted to do. When I got out of prison, I became a recovery support specialist, and I started doing it. So my destination was to be a certified addictions counselor. Somehow, some way on the journey, I got hired by Yale University. I was like a regular case manager. I got hired by Yale University. Next thing you know, I'm an associate director, and then I'm a director at one of the highest levels in the state of Connecticut. based off of me just kept showing up. I just kept showing up. So even though my destination was drug counselor, I became I'm the first, let's be clear. Can we be clear for a second, Hannah? I am the first African-American to sit in the seat of director role for the Office of Recovery Community Affairs for the state of Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. So that saying, I always tell my son, if you need somebody, he's always like, oh, Dad, I don't know what to write about Black History. I'm like, write about your boy, right? Because, I was the first, right? So with that being said, my destination was being an addictions counselor, and I'm a certified by trade. I am a certified addictions counselor, but this journey took me so many different places. So I had one destiny, but these doors start popping open. They start flying open, and they start flying open. So I started saying, okay, I'll do that, and then maybe I'll come back to that. And and through my journey, I always end up, I'm always counseling people anyway, on the side, like so. So I mean, I don't know if that you got to be kind of flexible. We like to say fluid with your destination, but have one, right? But have one, because a lot of times people don't have one. That's where the problem. If you have one and you go a lot of other places, like I had one. You think I was going to turn down a job at Yale? I mean, no, I want to be this drug counselor. I'm sorry, I have a destination. No, I went to Yale, and when I was done with that, I went somewhere else, and then I ended up starting my own business. So, hey. Destinations are good.
That's awesome. I love what you said about keep showing up. I think that's in a nutshell, that's what you got to keep doing.
Yeah, you say that. It's so crazy you say that, Hannah, because my son who played football, and when I came home, he was like, Dad, I want to play football. So I'm like, all right. And he would go, and he really wasn't that good, but he would always put his uniform on, and he'd be sitting on the bench. And I would be out there in the cold like all the other parents, and he'd turn around and he'd give me a thumbs up. And I'd be like, man, bro, but what he showed me was he was willing to suit up every time, whether he got in the game or not. And that's what we need to do, is suit up every time. He taught me so much at 9 that I just was like, now I got to suit up. We got to suit up, because we never know when they're going to put us in the game.
Absolutely. All right, here's a real practical question. How do you continue to make time for yourself in your recovery when you were doing all of this important work?
Yeah. Nah, you know what? Self-care is key, right? Self-care is key. And I think that for me, it's like making it fun. This is fun. This is fun. This is cool. This is like, I'm with my people. I'm with my tribe. I'm having a good time like doing this. I mean, it's not burdensome, right? But besides this, if I were to put this like away, I'm gonna say, like, right now, before this happened, I was watching the King's Gambit on Netflix, and it was like this series that I really like loved, and I found out like right before I had to get ready for this, I watched the 7th episode and I found out that was it. And so now I'm sad because I don't know what I'm gonna watch next. But I always take time for myself, and I have a slingshot, a 3-wheel bike, so I ride that when the weather is good. And I'm blessed to have some really cool opportunities to do some really cool self-care things. But self-care is key. We always got to keep it for like some days. I think it was like last week or something where we just didn't do anything. Like one day just was like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just not gonna do anything. Even though I always got stuff to do, but there's some days I'm just like, I'm not gonna do anything but eat. I always eat. Like, if you follow me on social media, don't follow me on social media if you're on a diet or anything like that, because I don't eat healthy at all. Like, so.
Amen to that. So we have a few more questions. I didn't realize that some folks were putting some questions in the Q&A. So I think we will go over a few minutes if that's okay with everybody. If you need to hop off, that's great. We'll be definitely sending the recording, but I would love to have Daryl answer just a couple more questions while we're all here together, because these are awesome questions. Someone is asking, what kind of advice can you give about helping people who don't know how to admit that they're struggling?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think that what we do is we hold space for them. We hold space for those individuals that are struggling, because we know, especially those of us that are in recovery, we knew how hard it was for us to get into that. And I think just supporting them, but just really asking them what is like. I'm working with some people right now that are in early quote unquote recovery. One person had 2.5 weeks, a person had 1 week. And what I like to start with, and this is just me, this is my style, is I'm starting with like, yo, so what happened a week ago? What happened 2 weeks ago? What was it? Was it money? Was it, because we start to identify what these triggers were. What space were you in? And then I've been very fortunate for people to be able to say, to walk it back and say, well, my cousin went to court, whatever. But then we start to talk about that. Okay, so how'd you, and we start to work, like, so that's me working with them. It's starting to like, let's walk it back. What's the reward? Let's talk about it. Like, and it's a slow walk. But one of the things that for me, I'm very fortunate because I'm connected to a lot of people and places. If you're ready for treatment, I can help you get it. That's my thing. So I'm always asking, do you think you need help? Do you need a bed? Because most of the time, if I make that call, people know that I'm calling for somebody that needs immediate treatment. So that's another plus of being who I am, is that I know a lot of people in recovery in a lot of really cool places. Yo, I need a bed for this person. And they know that most of the time. Sometimes they don't go, sometimes, but we try to make space for them.
Absolutely. So this is, we'll combine two questions in one. Travis is wondering what your favorite leadership book is on that top shelf. And additionally, who is a speaker or leader that has impacted you after you were out of incarceration? And what is something that they said that has stuck with you?
Okay, so my favorite speaker, motivational speaker, is Eric Thomas. I have to say that, like, I'm just a groupie between him and Brian Stevenson. I'm like totally groupies for these dudes because, like, yo, Brian Stevenson for his work in criminal justice, but Eric Thomas is more so like that motivational speaker. He's a guy that, basically single parent, single mom, he doesn't have a criminal justice story or an addiction story, but he's come up through, like, homelessness and all of this stuff like that. If you have an opportunity to listen to him, he's very inspirational. I inspire to be him. He started with nothing. Now he's like $50,000. He's one of the top speakers in the country. He makes $50,000 a speech. I want to see I want to see what that feels like. You know what I mean? But I'm always gonna, I'm happy to just, do this work. So I'm blessed to be able to do that. But so that's one. And what was the other question? Eric's question?
Yeah, it was just, who is a leader that really kind of spoke to you personally after, well, not maybe actually.
Oh, no, I think it's the book. Yeah, so Eric Thomas and Brian Stevenson. And I have to say, there's so many, but I think Jim Collins, Good to Great is one of my favorites. I think that's one of my favorite. Jim Collins, Good to Great. I believe, like, he just was talking about, like, having the right, there's a piece in here where he talks about ducks and eagles and the difference between a duck and an eagle. And I'm like, oh man, that just was like, that was just so good. And then he also talks about having the right people on the bus, and not only having the right people on the bus in your organization, but having them in the right seats. I'm like, ooh, man, that's so dope. So yeah, but the eagles, if you have an opportunity to read about, like, eagles and ducks and the difference between, eagles fly and ducks are, so just a bunch of different stuff. And then there's so many different analogies about eagles and how they roll and how they actually live. I'm a fan of the lion, though. Like, I really believe my spirit animal is a lion, king of the jungle. I believe that I'm a lion. Like, I believe that everything I do is like lions. But that's just me.
I love that. We all have a spirit animal. Okay, so I'm going to ask one last question. I will say that I am 62 messages behind in the chat.
Oh,
so
man.
We're not going to get to everybody's question, but I think this is just proof that we're going to be bringing Daryl back for another webinar at some point.
That's what I'm saying. Let's do it.
So the last question is, was your record ever an issue in school or grad school? I am a big supporter of ban the box, and I know that only in 4 states right now is it illegal to ask about your record on a college application.
It never was an issue for school. Like, school was never an issue. My grad professor, like, follows me on social media, and she's like one of my biggest fans. And it was funny because the program that my nonprofit that I wrote my nonprofit in grad. That was my grad project, right? The components to my nonprofit, all the work that, and I wrote about peer support and the importance of peer support after incarceration. And I wrote that in her class, and like, having that as your project, and she's tweaking it. And now, whatever, 10 years, whatever later, 5, 6 years later, for it to actually be like, she sees me doing this crazy work and it be coming to fruition. A lot of people that have been in my class as well as her are just, I bring all these people with me, especially the brothers that are still in prison. They get excited when they see you on the news, or they see you making speeches or whatever, because they had a little piece of that. They were there with you when you were devising that 5-year plan,
Great. So one last question, which should be easy. If any of our students want to get in touch with you for any reason, what's the best way to do that?
You guys can share my contact info, but I'm also on Instagram, Harry Tubman 18. You already know, like Harriet Tubman, Underground Railroad, Harry Tubman 18 on Instagram. We also have Formerly Inc. We also have a Formerly Inc. page on Instagram. I'm also Daryl McGraw on Facebook. Those of you that still use Facebook, I'm a fan, so I'm there. But like I said, don't follow me if you are on a diet or you're a vegan. Probably don't want to do that, because I'm gonna eat a burger like right now. So, and I'll probably post it. So yeah, so any of those places like that, I'm on LinkedIn too. I'm here to help. I'm here to inspire. You got a plan, you're trying to do something, let me know what it is. Let's make it happen. Let's collaborate. So
That's great. I'll definitely be sure to share all the social media handles and the contact information in the email later this week.
No doubt.
So I know we can't all give a hand of applause, but I'll just go ahead and do that on behalf of everybody, because I know that this has just been such a spectacular ending to a beautiful day. I don't think I've ever seen a chat box on a Zoom call blow up the way that it is right now. And I'm so behind. I'm now 78 messages behind. So when this ends in a couple minutes, I'm going to be following up to see what everybody's chatting about.
Yeah, you could hit me if it's something that's really like somebody had like a burning desire, right? Whatever, just hit me and we'll get that. But before I go, I just want to say congratulations for you guys taking that first step. That's what we had to do. I had to take it. You have to take it. We had to take it, man. Leadership, man. This is where it's at. I remember my grad professor saying, anybody can be a manager. Managers just manage, but leaders lead. And I'm inspired by you guys. You guys inspire me, and this is what we get to do. And once you start being a leader, it's just like nothing, because like they call you to do all kinds of really cool stuff. You're like, all right, I can do that. You want me to lead police officers in a national conversation about police accountability as a survivor of police brutality? Absolutely. Let's do it, because that's the only way I see real change happening. And we can't do it alone. This is a we thing, not a me thing. So it was a blessing that Hannah reached out and was like, you got to do this. I was like, no doubt. So everybody that's here that heard me, make sure that that it didn't happen by accident. This is meant to be, man. This is our journey. We're on it.
Thanks so much, Daryl. I wasn't kidding when I said that we'll be bringing you back, because we got a part. In addition to this, we also have webinars throughout the year. We are going to have a graduation. So thank you so much, Daryl. This has been an amazing day for everybody. Real quick before we hop off, thank you everybody for staying on a little bit later. I couldn't mess up the vibe at 5:55. I had to keep it going. So really quick, I just want to go over a couple of important things.